Parak Mem Aleph. This parak is going to speak about the story of Matan Torah and Har Sinai, and I think it'll be a very good way of preparing for Shavuos to learn this parak the next few weeks. In Parak Yud Daled, which we didn't do yet, it says it introduces the topic of 10 Yeridahs that HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down to the world. There's 10 times in Chumash where it says a lashon of Yeridah, descent by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down from his lofty position in Shemayim down to this world to intervene in whatever ways he felt necessarily to intervene. And it lists off 10 instances where we see that. And the later prakim from Parak Yadalit all the way till the end of the Sefer go through the different examples of that happening. So Parak Mem Aleph is going to speak about the 6th Yeridah, the 6th time that it says that Hashem came down, and that's when Hashem came down at Har Sinai. Let's read it. Yeridah Hashishis, the 6th Yeridah, Sheyarad LeSinai, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu descended down to Mount Sinai. Shnamar, it says in the pasuk, Parashas Yisro, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. Hashem descended upon Har Sinai. B'shisha b'sivan nigla HaKadosh Baruch Hu al Yisrael b'Har Sinai. On the 6th of Nisan, HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed Himself to the Jews on Mount Sinai. U'memekaymai nislash Har Sinai. And from its place, Har Sinai was uprooted. What does that mean that it was uprooted? So here it says nitlash, which means uprooted or detached. The Radal brings that in the Yalkut, the Gersa is nitla, not nitlash, but nitla, which means it was hanging, as if to say that Har Sinai was hanging in the air. Targum Yonason, the Parashas Yisro, says both. It was nitlash mora alma yastura, Kadosh Baruch Hu detached the mountain, v'zakfe ba'avira, and He had it standing in the air. So Har Sinai was detached from its spot and was sort of floating in the middle of the air. The Marzu says that this is referring to the idea that we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifted the mountain on top of the Jews and said, if you don't be Mekabel Torah, here you'll be killed and here you'll be buried. That's what the Marzu says. The Radal says he doesn't like that. He doesn't see that Pirkei Eliezer is referring dafka to that over here. It could be this is just one of the wondrous things that happened to Har Sinai by Matan Torah, not necessarily the inyan of what the Gemara calls Kaf Olayim Har Kegigis. V'niftach opened up, v'nichnas reish har b'shamayim, and the top of the mountain entered the Shamayim. So the mountain floated upwards, and the top of the mountain was sort of going into what we call Shamayim, whatever that means. V'arafel mechasa esahar, and there was like a dark cloud that was covering the mountain. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoshev al kisai. HaKadosh Baruch, this also we don't exactly understand what this means. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoshev al kisai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sitting upon his chair of glory. V'graglov oimdes al arafel, and the feet of HaKadosh Baruch Hu were standing on this dark cloud. Shneimar vayet shumayim vayered v'arafel tachas raglov. We don't know exactly what any of this means, but basically there's some sort of mashal over here that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sitting on a chair and his feet were over the dark cloud. But now we're going to say over a famous medrash over here that's famous. You've probably heard different variations of this medrash, and we'll try to speak about some ideas that come out from it. Rabbi Tarfon says, Zach HaKadosh Baruch Hu mehar Seir v'nigla al b'nei Esau. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shined forth from the mountain of Seir, and He revealed Himself to the sons of Esau. Shnamar, as it says in the pasuk, Vayomer Hashem misinai bo v'zorach meseir lamai. Hashem came from Sinai. He said, Hashem came from Sinai. Hashem misinai bo v'zorach meseir lamai, and He shined forth from Seir. What's Seir? Says the Medrash, Ve'ein Seir el b'nei Esau. Seir is a reference to the sons of Esau. Shnema, it says in the pasuk, Parshas Vayishlach, Vayeshev Esau b'Har Seir. Esau settled in Har Seir. So Seir is another name for its inhabitants, Esau, the sons of Esau. So Kadosh Baruch Hu went to the sons of Esau. What did He say to them? Kadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem said to them, Torah. Would you like to receive the Torah? So the sons of Esau said to Hashem, Maksiv ba. What does it say in the Torah? It says in the Torah, don't kill or don't murder. They said to him, go away from us. We cannot forsake the blessing that Yitzchak gave to our Esau, our forefather. Because Yitzchak said to him, you will live by the sword. Yitzchak gave a bracha to Esau, that Esau's descendants are going to live by the sword. And they're saying, it says in the Torah, you're not allowed to murder? No, we can't take that because we have a bracha that we're supposed to live by the sword, and murdering is part of our identity.
Would they using it as an excuse, or did they really believe this?
Oh, so we'll get to that. Umisham Chazai v'nigla al bnei Ishmael, and from there Hashem went back and revealed Himself upon the sons of Ishmael. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, Hoifia mehar Paran. He revealed Himself from Har Paran, the mountain of Paran, and Paran is the name of the desert where the descendants of Ishmael lived. Omar lahem, Hashem said to them, Mekabel matam es Torah. Would you like to receive the Torah? Omar loi, they said to him, Maksiv. What does it say? The same answer. Omar lahem, lo signov. It says in the Torah, you're not allowed to steal. That's what He said to Bnei Ishmael. Omar loi, they said to Hashem, we can't forsake that matter which our forefathers have been doing. And they choose a very interesting example over here. We have to speak about that. Because our forefathers kidnapped Joseph and they brought him down to Mitzrayim. Shneimar, because it says in the pasuk, this is Yosef speaking to the Egyptians. He said, I've been stolen from the land of the Hebrews. So Yosef was stolen, and Ishmael is saying, we can't, we historically been involved in stealing, so we can't stop stealing, so we cannot accept the Torah.
So what with this example? So what are they saying? Are they saying that, listen, we have our stealing, it has an integral part in the history, in your plan. If we didn't steal Joseph, he wouldn't have come down, and you wouldn't have gone out in the Jewish.
Oh, so we'll sit a moment. 1 second. Umisham shalach l'chol umay Yisraelim, or l'shag umay Yisraelim. From there, from Bnei Yishmael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu went to all the other nations, or to all the nations of the world. And he said to them, "Bekavlam etem es Torah. Would you like to receive the Torah?" Amru Loi, they said, "Maksiba." What does it say in the Torah? Amar lahem, Hashem said to them, Lo yihi elacha elihim acherim al panai. You shouldn't have any other gods besides me. Amru Loi, they said to Hashem, we cannot. They said to him, we cannot leave that which our forefathers have been doing. That they worship all kinds of idols. We do not want the Torah. Rather, give the Torah to your nation. It says in the pasuk, Hashem oiz la'ama yitain. Hashem gives strength to His nation. Hashem yivorech es amay v'shalom. Hashem blesses His nation with peace. That's interesting. The Medrash said first Hashem went to Esau, Ishmael, and then it just lumped everyone together as and then the rest of the nations. Why did it single out Esau and Ishmael? So Radal says because Esau and Ishmael are descendants of Avram Avinu, so they have a special chashivus. So that's why the Medrash spoke out exactly the dialogue between Hashem, or the midrashic dialogue between Hashem and those nations, because they're chashuv nations, because they're descendants of Avram Avinu. At the end, the Radal notes that in other versions of this Medrash, it actually says that he also spoke to Ammon and Moab and offered them the Torah, and they said no because it says Lo Sinaf, which is the Isser of Arias. So it seems like he's sort of asking a question, but I don't think it's such a question.
That's basically the essence of these people.
Right, but Ammon and Moab, right, the essence of Ammon and Moab is to do znos and things like that. But also Ammon and Moab are also related to Avram Avinu, because they're descendants of Lot, and Lot had a lot of connection to Avram. He was like a Talmud, he was a nephew. So it could be that the Midrash and Dafka specifically singled out Esau, Ishmael, Ammon, and Moab, because these people had shaykhs to Avram Avinu, and the other nations not necessarily. So it just lumped them all together and said,
at some level they have some schus.
Right.
They're not like Eliezer, Abraham said like, I'm Baruch with Aro.
Right.
Completely detached from me. So people married are not completely detached from Aro.
Right, they're not completely right. There's another. So Rabbi Steiner asked, did they really believe what they were saying? Like, what was happening? They were just looking for an excuse to not be makabel the Torah, or they really felt that like that's their ikar identity. Our identity is murder. Our identity is stealing. Our identity is idolatry. What was happening over here? So, and also, you could ask another question: why did Hashem dafka choose the example that He knew they wouldn't be able to keep? Right? If you say, okay, what does it say in there? Well, it says in there that you have to send away the mother bird when you pick up the eggs. Right? So okay, fine. That's not a big deal, right?
And on the other hand, when it comes to us, the proposition is really quite different. It's if anything, it's duress.
Right. Well, okay, that's a different question. But so the Bayis Hagadol, the pish that you have on the bottom over there. So he says like this. So Hashem realized, you could see from the answer what their attitude is. So when Hashem said to them, you want to accept the Torah. So when Hashem asked the Jews, we're going to see in a moment, later on, we're going to see that the Jews said, oh, we'll accept it. You don't know what it says in there. Okay, we'll find out afterwards. But right now, we're saying we accept it.
So
the old joke, Hashem offered the Jews a Torah. They said, how much does it cost? Says it's free. We'll take two.
Yeah. So.
But their reaction, the reaction of Ammon, Moab, Esau, Ishmael, their reaction was, oh, what does it say in there? Well, they didn't say, oh, we'll take it. They said, what does it say in there? They weren't really interested in it. They want to make a whole. They want to come up with a reason why not. So you want to come with a reason why not? I'll give you a reason why not. Because here it says this, which you feel is against your whole national identity.
I mean, the point is, what should they have said?
Well, if they really want it, if they want it, then say.
But they don't know what's in it. They said
but,
what's in it.
But the Jews accepted it without knowing what's in it.
They get it about over their head.
So who's the sucker?
So, but it could be that Hashem put the mountain over their head after they accepted it. It could be there's such a mahal.
But you give medicine to your kids and it's just like open up. He doesn't know what it is.
Right.
And sometimes they think, okay, Abba's giving me, so
you trust
whatever.
him. You trust him.
We trust Abba, and sometimes like it's very bitter and sometimes very sweet.
Right.
And the Torah is sometimes very bitter because we want to do things that are not written in Torah because they're bad, and sometimes very sweet because Torah is true.
Right. Yeah, that's a good mashal.
But you have a relationship with your Iman Abba. With Hashem, we didn't know who Hashem was.
No, we Hashem took us out of Egypt and all these things.
The thing is like when was the Torah giving was like after a malach of dependence and confidence. So for me it's like if you read the Torah and if you think about the Omer and everything is so strong that the relationship that they build from it's just enshrined until Matan Torah. So it has to be that they just whatever you give me is good.
I hear. So could be that's the whole chisaron of the other nations that they didn't have a relationship with God.
Level, not such okay, whatever I take it. It's not a.
Another nikud over here. So that's what the Bayis HaGadol says, that from their answer that they started questioning, well, what was it there? They didn't just blindly accept it. You already see that they're not really interested. So Hashem, so if you're not interested, I'll help you out to not be interested. I'll give you a reason why not to be interested. But if we look very closely at what we just read, there's a very interesting thing over here. It says that when Hashem went to Esau, he asked Esau, do you want to accept the Torah? So it says, Esau said, we can't leave the bracha that Yitzchak gave our forefather, Esau, because it says, it says that we're supposed to live by the sword. When he went to Ishmael, what did Ishmael answer back? Ishmael answered back, so Ishmael answered back that we can't take this Torah because it says you're not allowed to steal, and we historically steal. We're involved in stealing. We'll explain that in a moment. But in other versions of this medrash, they said back, Bnei Yishmael said back, that we can't leave the bracha that Hashem gave to Ishmael, v'hu yeh para adam. That Ishmael is going to be an ass of a man. He's going to be a wild man. Right? Why didn't they? Why, according to Pirkei Avos, didn't they answer that back? Just like Bnei Esau answered back, we have a bracha of al chai b'chatichya. So Yishmael should answer back, we have a bracha of v'hu yeh para adam. That's one question. Another question is in the Bayis HaGadol that you have on the bottom. He says he doesn't understand. He doesn't have an explanation for this. They said we are historically have been involved in kidnapping. Why? Because we kidnapped Yosef and we brought him down to Mitzrayim. Now that's not true. Who kidnapped Yosef?
It's the brothers.
The brothers kidnapped him, not the Ishmaelim. The Ishmaelim were just like the middlemen that bought him and eventually got him down to Mitzrayim, but they didn't kidnap him. Okay, so you want to say maybe from the fact that they bought him and they sold him, you see they're involved in human trafficking, so they're kidnappers. Maybe that's the pshat. But then why dafka do they have to refer to the story of Yosef? Just say, okay, yeah, we kidnapped. That's what we do. So these two questions are asked by Rabbi Yomi Izmir in his Pirush V'lo Yoed El over here on Pirkei Avos. Yeah, that's another question. It says once we're answering back with a historical precedent that Bnei Yishmael are saying, oh, we can't accept it because we steal and we historically steal by Yosef. So why didn't Bnei Esau answer in a similar way? If we're talking about the sons of Yaakov Avinu stealing Yosef, kidnapping Yosef, so also Esau should have referred to what the sons of Yaakov Avinu did. That you'll tell me. You said to Bnei Esau, "Do you want to accept the Torah?" It says no. It says you're not allowed to murder. So the Bnei Esau should answer back. Well, Yaakov, Shimon and Levi murdered, and we have shaychus to Shimon and Levi. We can't. We see that murdering is a good thing. We can't accept the Torah. So why didn't they answer that back? Just like Ishmael answered back, the sons of Yosef, the brothers of Yosef kidnapped Yosef. So Esau should also answer back. Shimon and Levi killed, so we should be able to kill. What's wrong with killing? So this is the questions from Rabbi Yomi Izmir and V'lo Yoed El. And he says an interesting idea. He says that he says the difference between Esau and Ishmael. Ishmael don't necessarily hate the Jews as much. Ishmael they're wild, they're uncivilized, uncouth, and they have this bracha, v'hu yeh para adam. He's going to be a wild man. Now, everyone realizes that this bracha, v'hu yeh para adam, it's not such a good bracha. It's not really a bracha in a way. It's more of a, that's the mitzias. That's the mitzias of what Yishmael is, a para adam. Not necessarily is it a bracha. So they don't want to answer back to Hashem, oh, we can't accept the Torah because it says you're not allowed to steal and we're supposed to be wild men. That's not the bracha. So rather, what do? We know that Yishmael did tshuva at the end of his life, and Yishmael sort of more came back and associated himself with the family of Avram Avinu. So they want to say, we can't be better than the family of Avram Avinu, who themselves are involved in stealing. The brothers of Yosef stole. So we don't want to show that we're better than that, and by accepting the Torah, they're involved in stealing, and we're sort of part of them. So that's why we don't want to accept the Torah. That's how he understands what Ishmael said. On the other hand, when we're talking about Bnei Esau actually hate Yaakov. Esau's Sinai is Yaakov. Halacha l'Moshe v'Sinai Gemara. The Medrash says so. Halacha Esau's Sinai is like Esau will always hate Yaakov. They don't want to associate themselves with Yaakov. So they're not gonna answer back, but with this precedent that Shimon and Levi murdered, so we're not going to be better than them and accept on themselves to not murder because they don't want to associate themselves with Bnei Yaakov. So the only thing they could answer back was, we have a bracha that we're al chai b'chatichya, and they understood that al chai b'chatichya. They really understood that it's a bracha, and they took it. They took it to the umpth degree. This is our bracha. This is how we live. We live by the sword. So that's why they answered back the bracha, and they only answered back from a precedent.
They believed it was a bracha.
What? They really believed that it was their bracha.
You make your way in the world through killing.
Through killing.
You need something, you kill, and you'll be matzliach at it.
Yeah.
You will overpower your adversary, you'll kill him, and you'll have your panasa.
Right.
And also by the stealing. Like it's the same answer by the
Right.
stealing. Your panasa is by the stealing. It's a bracha. How do you think every thief is successful?
Right.
Some are more successful than others. Murderers, some are more successful than others.
Yeah.
And
you can get caught.
Each one of them had a vision.
Yeah.
This is their
It's interesting.
way of the world.
In the more popular versions of this medrash, and you might have heard it in that nusach. Hashem goes to Ishmael, and Ishmael says we can't accept Torah because it says lo sinaf. They're not allowed to commit adultery and other immoral things. And when Hashem went to Bnei Esau, again also it says lo sirtzach, you're not allowed to murder, and you can't murder. That's the more popular. In the other versions of this medrash, it says that Yishmael didn't want it not because of stealing, but because of promiscuity, and Esau didn't want it because of murder. So someone once asked me that if you look in the world now, Yishmael, which is the Arab world, and Esau, which is represented by the Western world, it's actually the opposite. The Western world is more into immorality, and the Arab world is more into murder. Even though the Rambam writes, I forgot where it is exactly. The Rambam writes that the Arabs look like they're very pious people, and they don't do this, and they cover themselves up or whatever. He says they're really the most promiscuous people that exist. So someone asked me, but this is what? I think the Rambam. Someone asked me once, the way it looks in the world now, it looks like it's the exact opposite. It's the Western world that's doing this nus, and the Arab world that's doing the killing. That's all. Not the Western world doing the killing and the Arab world doing the znus. So,
one of the I think the reason that we have these questions on the two answers is because we're seeing it through the perspective of civilization. They gave these answers pre-civilization. The world wasn't.
Well, there were small. Were they nations or families?
Civilization. Now we have Western civilization, and Western civilization for everyone to be able to go on in the world and to cross the street without killing each other, whatever. It's certain things you are bad. Before civilization, they weren't quote unquote bad. Okay. You're going to limit, your friend's ability to go to conduct himself in the world. You're going to cut his life short. That's bad according to civilization. So we say murder is bad. You can't take his possessions, otherwise people aren't going to work. Whatever. So we say you can't steal. Okay. But prior to civilization,
it's convenient.
no, it's civilization.
You're saying things have changed because of the development of society.
It's post-Torah.
Okay.
Torah says don't steal, don't.
You're saying
don't
once we've had an influence,
whatever.
once the Torah has had and the Jews have had an influence in the world, it sort of changed the ideas of the other nations. I hear.
And much to the chagrin of Esau and Ishmael. Okay. We can't take the Torah because it says don't murder. We can't take the Torah because it says don't steal. Yet we have Western civilization, or it's civilization as a whole, whatever, which has been influenced by the Torah, which they didn't want anything to do with, which ended up biting them anyway and saying, you can't steal, you can't murder.
I hear. When this question was posed to me a few years ago, I sort of answered more tongue-in-cheek. I said, if you look at the Arab world, it looks like the Arabs are more involved in murder. But really, why are they more involved in murder? Because their Islamic teachers teach them that if you get killed while killing a Jew, so you go to heaven and you get 72 virgins. So really, what's motivating their murder is the znus. Agav, they say that the word that means virgins in that context is really supposed to mean like white grapes or something. So really, it means that if they kill a Jew get killed while they're killing a Jew, they get 72 white grapes when they go to heaven. But that's what I heard once. And the Christian world, it looks like they're more involved in znus than in murder. But really, why are they doing the znus? So they could kill the babies.
Wow. That's sad. What?
No, because like abortion and these type of things. Oh, stop that. It was tongue in cheek, but it's just I was trying to tell the guy not necessarily is everything the way it looks. That was the point. But let's go weiter. Let's go further. Umisham chazar v'nigla al bnei Yisrael. And from there, from after this discussion with Esau and Ishmael, all the other nations, Hashem went and revealed himself to Bnei Yisrael. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, v'asa merivaves kodesh. Hashem came from the multitudes of, rivaves means the thousands or hundreds of thousands of the holy hundreds of thousands. Merivaves kodesh. The word asa is really Aramaic. Like in Aramaic we say asa, aleph saf aleph, to mean coming. Here asa, coming from Rivaves Kodesh. Ve'ein Rivaves al Yisrael, Rivaves, the multitudes refers to Klal Yisrael. Shemar says in the pasuk, and Parshas Har HaElokim, uvenuchaya yimar shuva Hashem Rivaves alfei Yisrael. When they stop traveling, so shuva Hashem Rivaves alfei Yisrael, the multitudes of hundreds of thousands of Klal Yisrael. So you see that the word Rivaves is used in connection to Klal Yisrael. The Radal understands that this next line is saying another pshat. What does it mean, Rivavis? Rivavis either means Yisrael or it means the next thing. It means V'imai alfei shinan v'rechav Rabbi Saim malchi kodesh. With HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he revealed himself to Klal Yisrael, was hundreds of thousands of different types of angels. Shinan and Rechav are different types of angels. So that's what it means, Rivavis. Okay. V'minai eichezes es Torah. The right hand of a Kadosh Baruch Hu was holding the Torah, or the right of a Kadosh Baruch Hu was holding the Torah. Shenamar, it says in the pasuk, Mi minai, from his right, Aish dos lomoi, a fiery religion for them. From his right, a fiery religion for them. It's referring to Matan Torah, that from his right, from the right of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, came a fiery religion for Klal Yisrael. What does it mean, a fiery religion? From here you learn that Divrei Torah, the words of the Torah, is like the fire of a coal. What does it mean it's like the fire of a coal? It says the Radal that when you have a coal, so sometimes when you can have a coal and it's glowing and it's obvious that there's some sort of fire involved. Sometimes you have a coal and it looks like it's a cold coal and there's no fire. But if you touch it, you get burnt. Why? Because there's really a fire going on the inside. So, same thing with the Torah. So, sometimes you look at something and you don't understand it, and it doesn't have any pshat, and there's nothing to say over here. There's nothing here. It's cold. There's nothing there. But if you really look into it, deep inside, there's a fire burning. There's a real pshat, and there's a real understanding to it, hidden inside the coal. That's why the Divrei Torah is like a coal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah to Klal Yisrael with an expression of endearment. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, "Smoilai tachas reishi, v'meinai techabekeni." That's the end of the pasuk. Hashem, it's talking about the relationship between Klal Yisrael and Hashem. Smoilai tachas reishi, the left part of Hashem, let's say, is underneath my head, meaning it's supporting me. V'meinai techabekeni, and his right is hugging me. And we said that the Torah is miminoi, from the right of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and from the right it's hugging. So Radak says that even though the Torah is like a fire, it's just gevura, it's powerful, it's a real like a dangerous thing, but still Hashem gave it in the lashon of chiba, with the endearment. Hashem was like hugging him. Derech ava, derech chiba. That's the way Kadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah. Another nekuda, bilshen shvua. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave the Torah with an expression of shvua, of an oath. Shenamar, but the gears over here is a little bit off, but it says bilshen shvua, ve'ein miminai el shvua. This is the way the Bayis HaGadol has the gears up. Or also the Radal also. She'ein miminai el shvua. The lashon of yamin, the right, we said the Torah came from the right, miminai, is the lashon of shvua. Why? Because it says in the pasuk, Shenamar nishba Hashem biminai uvizay uzay. Hashem swore with his right and with the power of his arm. So we see that when we talk about the right, it refers to an oath. And also we have this in the next parak, in parak Mem Beis, by when HaKadosh Baruch Hu swore to the sea that he's not going to have any tainas for swallowing up the Egyptians. So we see that Hashem gave the Torah with an expression of oath. Hashem sort of swore, there was some sort of swearing involved. The question is, what was the swearing that was involved with the giving of the Torah? So the Marzu explains that Hashem swore to Klal Yisrael that He's never going to take the Torah away from them. It's Hashem making it swear. Hashem swearing. The Radal understands differently. He says that Hashem made the Jews swear that they're not going to replace the Torah. So who's swearing here? Either Marzu says that Hashem swore not to replace the Jews, and the Radal says that the Jews swore not to replace the Torah. That they're going to keep the Torah, uphold the Torah. This brings in an interesting discussion.
Second premises.
What?
Second premises is a little
Yeah.
tough, man. You can promise on yourself, you can promise on your son to do something. Like, what about...
Oh, so we're going to see that Chazal tell us that all the Jews and all the future generations were there at Matan Torah, and everyone was makabel this oath. But there's a Gemara in the Darm that says like that. The Gemara in the Darm says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when the Klal Yisrael was makabel the Torah, they were makabel it with a shvuah. V'lishva yasan demekayim tun Torah. The Darm daf chav hey malaf. That they were makabel the Torah with a shvuah, with the oath. They swore that they're going to keep the Torah. What obligates the Jews to keep the Torah? They said they're going to do it. Why? Because they swore that they're going to keep the Torah. Why? You can ask like this: before the Torah, what was the difference between Jews and a regular guy? Ben Noach. Bnei Noach have 7 mitzvahs that they're supposed to keep. And now come along the Jews. They used to be like Bnei Noach, and they were makabel the Torah with an oath, and now they have 613 mitzvahs. Let's think about it a little bit. If you have a regular guy who's makabel something, is he obligated in that thing? If a guy makes a shvuah, is he obligated to listen to his shvuah? When the Jews before the Matan Torah, when they were goyim, and now they accepted with a shvuah the Torah, what obligates them to keep it? In the laws of Bnei Noach, there's no such thing as a shvuah. That's a question that I once had. Let's start like this. What are the Sheva mitzvahs Bnei Noach? Does anyone know?
Yeah.
So when I was a little kid, my father taught me a trick how to memorize all 7 mitzvahs Bnei Noach. They go from Aleph down to Zion. Each one is each letter represents one of the mitzvahs. So I'll teach you this trick so it'll help you remember it. Aleph is Iver Min HaChayim. You're not allowed to eat a limb off a live animal. Beis is called Birkas Hashem. You're not allowed to curse Hashem. Euphemistically, Birkas Hashem means blessing Hashem, but it means the opposite. Gimel is Gnever, or Gzeler. A guy is not allowed to steal. Dalet is Dinim. A guy is obligated to set up Batei Dinim. Hey is Hereg. A guy is not allowed to kill. Vav is Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah. A guy is not allowed to worship idols. Zayin is Nus. They're not allowed to commit certain incestual and adulterous relations. But those are the 7 mitzvahs. None of them says that you're supposed to listen to what you swear. So if the Jews before Matan Torah were like Goyim, and they accepted with themselves with an oath that they're going to keep the Torah, what obligates them to keep that oath? A Goy is not obligated to keep his oath, Pashtus, right? So comes along Tesis Talmidei Rabbeinu Peretz, Mesachas Nedarim. Tesis Talmidei Rabbeinu Peretz in Nedarim, Chaf Hem and Aleph, says that a Goy is obligated to keep an oath because it's included in Chilul Hashem and Kiddush Hashem. A Goy has a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, which we didn't say is one of the 7 mitzvahs, but he assumes that a Goy has a mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, and violating an oath is a Chilul Hashem, which is the opposite of Kiddush Hashem, and therefore a Goy is obligated to keep to his oaths. That's what it says in Tesis Talmidei Rabbeinu Peretz. This is sort of building on 2 assumptions. First, that a Goy is obligated to keep his oath, and second, that a Goy is and the reason why it is because a Goy is chayiv in Kiddush Hashem. So there's 2 assumptions: that a Goy is obligated to keep his oath, and a Goy is obligated in Kiddush Hashem. Now, the Mishnah Malach, one of the main Mefarshim on the Rambam, the Mishnah Malach says in Hilchos Milachim Perek Yud, he's mesupik if a Goy is obligated to keep a shvuah. Then he says that maybe it's a machlokes. The same person, the Mishnah Malach, without talking about Kiddush Hashem in regard to shvuah, he talks about Kiddush Hashem on its own. In his other sefer, it's a Jewish sefer called Precious Drachim, Jewish Beis, he talks about whether a Goy is obligated in Kiddush Hashem. the context over there is actually very interesting. It's talking about whether the Miyaldais, the Jewish midwives in Mitzrayim, were obligated to listen to Paro, that they should kill the Jews, or it's Yared Val Yavar, which, because Kiddush Hashem tells you that you're supposed to give up your life, and if Paro said you have to kill them, they should not kill them and let themselves be killed instead. That's Kiddush Hashem. So he was discussing whether what's the halachic ramifications in that case. But he says that a guy is not obligated in Kiddush Hashem. So what obligates a guy to keep his shua then? So there's other Mefarshim also that Rabbeinu Chaim Paltil al Torah in the Parshas Chayesara writes that a guy is obligated to keep his shua because it's like a Avodah Zarah to not keep his shua. Because if you make a shua, what's a shua? A shua is you say, in the name of God, I'm going to do such and such, or I say that such and such is true. So if it's not true or you don't do that, you're saying that you deny God, which is a form of Avodah Zarah. So he says that's why they're obligated to keep the shuas. The Panim Yafis, which is written by the Panim Yafis, the Pinchas Horowitz, the Hafla, Sefer HaMiknah, the Rebbe of the Chassam Sofer, the Rav in Frankfurt. So Panim Yafis in Parshas Matos writes that making a shvua, keeping a shvua is included in not cursing Hashem, because by not keeping it, you're defiling the name of Hashem. The Meshech Chochmah in Parshas Yisro says that you don't need a source for it. It's a logical thing. Okay, so we have different sources that it seems to say that it could be that a guy is obligated in shuas. So it says that Kodesh Baruch Hu was b'chayev Klal Yisrael to keep the Torah with a lashon of shvua, with bill shvua, because it says Kodesh Baruch Hu gave the Torah miminoi from his right, and we find the lashon of yamin in regard to shvuas. Another interesting idea that has to do with this, that the Kodesh Baruch Hu gave the Torah from his right. It's not so much relevant to what we're saying here in Pirkei Eliezer, but it has to do with this week's parsha a little bit. So I wanted to say over it. It's a cute word. The Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Tes Vav and Aleph, is talking about an Eved Ivri. Halacha by an Eved Ivri is that he works for his master for 6 years, and then in 6 years he goes free. What if he wants to stay? So if he wants to stay, so we make a hole in his ear, and then he becomes called a nirtza, and he can stay till he has to stay. Then he gets to stay till Yovel as Eved. So Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Tes Vav and Aleph says, which ear do you put the hole in? The right ear or the left ear? So Gemara says, Minayin the Ritzia Shiba Oizin Yeminis. How do you know that the Ritzia, this putting a hole in, has to be in the right ear? Because it says, in regard to the Eved Ivri, it says Yemin, it says Oizen, it says Oizen, the ear, and in regard to Mitzayah, when the Mitzayah is Mitzayah himself, so they take the blood of the Karbanas and they put it on his ear, and his thumb, and on his toe. And it says Oizen over there, and Oizen over there is Oizen Yeminis, his right ear. So here too, when it says Oizen, his ear means his right ear. That's what the Gemara says. So they ask a question. Reb Heschel asked this question in Parshas Mishpatim, it's brought down in Chanukah Satira. Why would you think that this should be done in any other ear except for the right ear? All mitzvahs in the Torah you do with the right. You put on tefillin, it says you tie your tefillin. It doesn't say which hand you tie your tefillin in. Why? Because you tie it with the right hand, with the more chashuv hand, right. So why would you think that when you put the hole in the ear of the Eved Ivri, you should do it in the left? Of course you do it on the right. All mitzvahs you do on the right. On the right. What was the Gemara's question, B'chal? So he says a Geshmak Avar. It says, Rashi brings this down in Chumash in a few places. Why is it that the Eved Ivri, when he wants to stay longer, so we make a hole in his ear? What did his ear do wrong? What's happening over here? What's the significance of this? So also in Gemara in Kiddushin, Chaf Bezim and Bez, the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had dershis to make her as kimin chomer. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai would darshan like this: Man ishtana oizen mikol oivarim shebeguf. What changed? Why is the oizen, the ear, different from all the ivarim, all the limbs of the body? Or Kodesh Baruch Hu, Hashem said, oizen shishama koilei Har Sinai b'shasha amarti. The ear that heard my voice in Har Sinai, when at the time that I said, Ki li b'nei Yisrael avadim, that to me the Jews are avadim. and avodayim, they're my servants. Hashem said that the Jews are my servants. V'lo avodim la'avodim. They're not servants to a servant. You're not supposed to be a servant to a Jew. A Jew is supposed to be servants to Hashem. You're not supposed to be a servant to a Jew who's also a servant to a servant. So this guy who wants to dafka be a servant to a servant, and his ear didn't hear that at Har Sinai, his ear heard it at Har Sinai, and he doesn't care, so you make a hole in his ear.
Yehudi?
Yehudi, Eved Ivri. That's what it says. This pasuk Kili b'nei Yisrael Avadim is a pasuk in this week's Parshan Bahar. The context of that pasuk is talking about that if a Jew is sold to a guy, you should make sure that he gets redeemed, because the Jews are not supposed to be slaves to other people. We're supposed to be slaves to Hashem, servants to Hashem. So that's what it says in the Gemara. Comes along Reb Heschel. He says very geschmackable. It says in the pasuk we just read, Miminai Aish das Lamai. From the right of HaKadosh Baruch Hu came the Torah to Klal Yisrael. Yeah, and there's a medrash in Shir Rabba. It says Yishakeni min shikais pihu. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu kissed us with the kisses of his mouth, and that's understood by the medrash to refer to Matan Torah, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu kissed us. Kissing doesn't mean literally kissing; it means he gave us words from his mouth. He gave us the Torah. And the medrash says, "B'shas Matan Torah hayahadibar yaitze miminay shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'smolan shel Yisrael." At the time of Matan Torah, the words came out of HaKadosh Baruch Hu from the right of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the left of Klal Yisrael. Right? If something is coming out of my right side, and we're facing each other, it's going to go into your left. Right? So it says that which ear was it that heard Hashem speaking by Matan Torah? It was the left ear, not the right ear. Yeah. So since it was the left ear, you would have thought that when we poke a hole in your ear because you didn't listen by Matan Torah, right? You would think that it's dafka the left ear because that was the ear that heard it. So the Gemara has to bring a pasuk oizen here and oizen by mitzvah to tell you no, it's dafka the right ear. All the mitzvahs you do with the right, but here you would have thought that the whole reason is because you didn't listen, so you would get it in the left ear, not in the right ear. So the Gemara has to bring the whole drasha to tell you no, it's the right ear. That's what the Rebbe of Heschel says. So it's a cute part. Another pshat that the Har Tzvi, of Tzvi Pesach Frank, the Rav of Yerushalayim, so he brings in his Sefer on Chumash Parashas Mishpatim, brings another pshat. Why you would have thought the left ear? All mitzvahs is the right ear. So he says that why do you do mitzvahs with the right? Because the right is the more chashuv. And when you're doing a mitzvah and you're doing what Hashem wants, what Hashem commands you to do, so you want to do it in the most chashuv way. So you do it with the right. But over here, he has to say that over here it's not necessarily a mitzvah to put the hole in his ear. Technically it's a mitzvah, but the reason behind it is not stam because you want to do what Hashem says. It's a einish. It's a punishment. You didn't listen by Har Sinai, so you get a hole in your ear. It's a punishment. So the punishment we don't want to do with the more chashuv part. We do with the left side. That's what you would have thought, and the Gemara has to say a drasha why dafka the right side. And it brings that over there that Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank had an argument with Rav Kook about this. There's a Sefer Luach Eretz Yisrael from Rav Yechiel Michal Tukachinsky. He has the Luach, called the Luach in Eretz Yisrael, the Luach. But in the Luach it says, it brings from Rav Kook, at least in the older editions of the Luach, I don't know if they still print it, brings down from Rav Kook that but right before Tisha B'Av, when you take off your shoes for the Avelos of Tisha B'Av, so Rav Kook said you take off your right shoe first, and then you take off your left shoe. Why? Because it's a mitzvah. The Avelos is a mitzvah, so you take off the right shoe first, because you start with the more chashuv thing, and then you do the left shoe. Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank argued. He said, no, you take off the shoe first, then you take off the right shoe. It seems like it's like a minute halachic difference, but it's bringing out this point. First you take off the left shoe, because it's not, the point isn't the mitzvah, the point is the Avelos. We're mourning Yerushalayim, the Averas and whatever, the sad situation, so we take off the left shoe first. And focusing on the Avelos, not necessarily the mitzvah shoe. Okay, fine. Let's go weiter.
It's a little bit like the word in the year.
What?
A little bit of like the word to tell about the punishment.
Yeah, that's the same idea.
Right and left, because of mitzvah, because of punishment.
Right. Let's go weiter. If you want, you can come join us. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Eliezer says, "Miyayim sheyotzu Yisrael miMitzrayim hayu noisim v'chaynim b'machlikas." From the day that the Jews came out of Mitzrayim, they were traveling and camping with a machlokes. Some Gersos have bechalkoilis, but they say that it's a mistake. It's supposed to say b'machlokes. They were traveling. They were always in a machlokes. Machlokes doesn't necessarily mean that they were in a fight, but it means that there were multiple opinions and multiple people had different objectives and they were going for different things and everyone had their own ambitions. So there were different. Each person was going for different reasons and stuff. Shemar says in the pasuk, "Vayisu vayachanu," and they traveled and they camped. Vayisu is lashon of rabbim. Vayisu they, it's plural. Vayisu they traveled. Vayachanu they camped, also plural. Ad shebo kulam Har Sinai, until they all came to Har Sinai. V'chanu kineged Har, and they encamped across from the mountain. Shemar it says in the pasuk, "Vayichan sham Yisrael neged Har." And Yisrael encamped there across from the mountain. Over here it says Vayichan, and it literally means and he encamped. It doesn't say and they encamped, and he encamped. Lashon Yochid, not Lashon Rabbah, in the singular form, not in plural form. So you see from here that when they came to Har Sinai, the Jews are reckoned as one entity. They all came together. That's how they encamped. There was no machlokes. Omer lahem v'kablam atem misla Torah. Hashem said to them, "Are you going to accept the Torah?" Amru chulam pe'echad. They all answered with one mouth, as if not literally one mouth, but with one. They all said the same thing, and they said, "Ad shelei nishmat es haTorah anu shomrim v'oisim kol hamitzvos haksuvim b'Torah." Even before we hear what the Torah is about, we are going to accept upon ourselves to be shomer, to guard, and to do all the mitzvahs that are said in the Torah. And the Radah says, Shoimim v'oisim, like we say, lishmar v'lasais. Shoimim is lois asay, lasais is mitzvahs asay. So we're going to keep the essays and lois asays of the Torah. He says maybe you could say another girsa, Shoimim v'oisim. We're going to listen and we're going to do. Shemar says in the pasuk, Vayayimru kol adon asher dibar Hashem nasa v'nishra. They said all the things that Hashem spoke, we're going to do and we're going to hear. And they said, we're going to do before they said we're going to hear. They accepted upon themselves to do whatever the Torah says before they even heard what the Torah is about. What? Rabbi Elazar HaMoidoi Omer. Rabbi Elazar HaMoidoi says like this. Miyayim shenivru shamayim v'aretz nikra shem Har Chorev. From the day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created shamayim v'aretz, the mountain was called Har Chorev. That was the name. When the Kadosh Baruch Hu revealed himself to Moshe from the Sneh, from the burning bush, because of that Sneh, the bush, which means Sneh means bush, it became the name of the mountain changed and became Sinai. Hu Chorev, but Sinai is Chorev. Sinai and Chorev is the same mountain, different name. Originally from Sheshes Shemei Bereshis, it was called Chorev. Now, after the story of Moshe Rabbeinu speaking to Hashem by this, it became the name Sinai as a remembrance of the Sneh. How do you know that Klal Yisrael was Makabel Torah Har Chorev?
Why exactly the Sneh? Because Hashem spoke with Moshe Rabbeinu first time through the Sneh. That's why, because there's this like a kind of a big, the ultimate symbol of Hashem speaking to Hashem, but it didn't begin there. That's why maybe.
That was like the beginning of the Geula, the beginning of the beginning of that process that went up to Mount Sinai.
They call Mount Sinai
after the Sneh.
After the Sneh. There's
that was the first time that Hashem sort of spoke face to face with Moshe, and then Har Sinai is like the paragon of Hashem speaking face to face with Klal Yisrael. Maybe that's the word. I don't know. Why Dafka the Sneh? Why did that change it? So it was like, how do we know that Hashem spoke? They were Makabel Torah by Har Chorev. If you look in the Pesukim, we only talk about Har Sinai. What is Har Chorev? How do you know it's the same mountain? It says in the pasuk, there's a mitzvah of Zechiras Maimed Har Sinai, the mitzvah to remember Har Sinai, and in that pasuk it says you should remember the day that you stood in front of Hashem your God, b'Chorev. It says b'Chorev, it doesn't say Har Sinai. I already know that Torah is given Har Sinai. So you see that Har Sinai and Har Chorev is really the same mountain, and there's different names, and it went through a process. It was originally called Har Chorev, from the time of Bris or Elam, it was called Har Chorev, and then afterwards it became, after the story of the Sneh, it became called Har Sinai. That's what the Medrash says.
How come it's called Chorev?
What's the meaning of the word Chorev? Oh, it's a good question. So,
There we know.
Sounds like
so there's a Medrash like this.
destruction and Horeb and terror.
Oh, but how does that fit in? Oh, so we're going to see in a moment. The Medrash Shmois Rabbah, Perek Beis, Siman Dalet, at the end of Siman Dalet. The Medrash says that Har Sinai actually had 5 names.
Where is that, sorry?
Shmois Rabbah, Parsha Beis, Siman Dalet at the end. It's the Medrash Shmois Rabbah and the Parsha Shmois.
Okay.
It says the Har Sinai has 5 names. I'm going to read it to you. Chamisha Shemais Yeshleit. That mountain has 5 names. Har HaElokim, the mountain of God. Har Bashan, the mountain of Bashan. Har Gavnunim, the mountain of Gavnunim. Har Chorev, mountain of Chorev. Har Sinai, Har Sinai. These are the 5 names. The Medrash explains what's the meaning of each of these 5 names. Har HaElokim, the mountain of God. Shisham Kibli Yisrael Elikusa Yishal Kodesh Baruch Hu. Because that's where the Jews accepted upon themselves the godness of Hashem. That's where they accepted Hashem as their God. Har Bashan, why is it called Har Bashan? Shukama sha'oichel adam b'shinav b'schus ha'torah shenitna bahar. Because everything that a person eats with his teeth, everything tangible that a person gets in this world, he gets in the schus of the Torah, which was given at Har Sinai. Right? B'shinav is like Bashan. So that's the Jewish. It says in the pasuk, next week's parsha, if you go with the chukim of the Torah, it says v'nasati gishmechem be'itam. I'm going to give the rain at its proper time, and that means the rain doesn't necessarily mean rain literally, but it means geshem means gashmius, which is all physical things that people have in this world. The Jews get in this world is b'schus the Torah, that they were makabel at Har Sinai. Har Gavnunim. Why is it called the Gavnunim? So the way that the Yosef explains it, the Medrash says 2 pshatim. Noki kegvina. It's clean like cheese. What does it mean, clean like cheese? So there was another man that says that Kodesh Baruch Hu was trying to decide which mountain should we give the Torah on, and there was only one mountain in the area that wasn't ever used as Avodah Zarah. So that now is Har Sinai. So Har Sinai is clean from Avodah Zarah. It didn't have Avodah Zarah. It didn't have any impurities in it. So too, when you make cheese. So how do you make cheese? You take milk. I don't know exactly how you make cheese, but you process it with the curds. The curds when you. It's
simple. You put it in.
You put it in a renner.
Out of the window and let it get what's it called? A little not rotten. What's the word?
Fermented.
No, yeah, naturally fermented because it's got a little, spoiled.
No, hard cheese. Hard cheese is a huge process.
I know exactly how you do it.
Exactly, it's a process of separation.
You separate the curd from the whey.
That means you clean it out.
Right. So the whey is like the impurities, and then the curds that's the pure cheese.
If you see, like sometimes it happens to you in your own fridge, like it's something.
The milk it starts separating and it turns into butter and
some kind of a water, and it's like a little whatever it's dirt, whatever.
It gets like clumpy and
Yeah, and then they have the cheese on top.
Right. So but the point is that when you make cheese, you're sort of separating the good part of the milk or whatever from the bad part, and then that's what you use to make the cheese. You take away the impurities. So Har Sinai is like cheese because you took away the impurities. It didn't have Avodah Zarah like all the other big mountains in the area. That's one pshat. Noki kagvina. The other pshat is Nikiyah mikol mum. It's clean from all mums, because when Klal Yisrael went there, they say kuloch hinoch yofa, or what's the pasuk? Hinoch yofa rayasi mum ein bach. Yeah, in Shir Shirim, that when Klal Yisrael was at Har Sinai, they didn't have any blemishes. That Hashem, when the Endearment says that Kodesh Baruch Hu healed all their maladies and everything by Har Sinai. But interestingly, the Poskim actually bring down this medrash. Why do we eat milchigs on Shavuos? So the Poskim actually bring down this medrash as one of the sources why we eat milchigs on Shavuos. Because Har Sinai is called Har Gavnunim, which is related to Gvina, which is cheese. So that's why we dafki eat cheese and other dairy products on Shavuos. Har Chorev. Why is Har Sinai called Mount Chorev? Shimimenu notlu Sanhedrin Rishus lahareg b'Chorev. Chorev is related to the word Chorev, a sword. From that mountain, from the giving of the Torah, that's where the Sanhedrin has Rishus, the permission, or the green light from Hashem to kill people with the sword. That's where Hashem gave the Rishus to Beis Din. Beis Din, now you're in charge of punishing people. Until now, Hashem took care of it. Now it comes down also to B'dei Adam. And Rishmu and Achman Omar, another pshat, that because that's where the goyim are going to be destroyed from, because they decided not to be Mekabel Torah. They got their decree. And then he says the Eish says their decree that they're going to be destroyed because they didn't want to accept the Torah. Pasuk in Yeshaya, the goyim are going to surely be destroyed. From Chorev, from Har Sinai, they're going to be destroyed. From the fact that they didn't want to be Mekabel Torah Har Sinai, that's what they're going to be destroyed in the future. And the last name, Har Sinai, why is it called Har Sinai? Shemimenu Yeridah Sinai la'evdei kachavim. Sinai is a lashon of sinah, hatred. From Har Sinai is where sinah of the goyim came down to the goyim. The hatred that the goyim have to the Jews came down at Har Sinai. That's where the goyim got their hatred from the Jews. The anti-Semitism started over there by Har Sinai. The Jews, the goyim don't like the fact that the Jews have the Torah and the Jews have this religion. They don't like that. That's what causes them to hate the Jews. So that's what their sinah came from Har Sinai. So we see that Har Sinai has all these five different names over here. Chorev, Gavnunim.
That's a contradiction.
What?
Between the Midrash.
No, I don't think it's So it could be it's a contradiction. You could say that it's B'chlekes the Midrashim, but you could understand like this. The mountain has 5 names, and we explained why it has these 5 names. Each of the names, why it has to do with the mountain, based on that. Yeah.
On top of that.
Yeah. On top of that, what does the Torah call it? So Pirkei Nebuchadnezzar is saying that we called it up until the story of the Sneh, from Ma'aseh Bereishis till the story of the Sneh, we call it Chorev. From the Sneh onwards, we called it Sinai. Why Sinai? Because of the Sneh. But why is it really called Sinai? Because of the hatred. And why is it called Chorev? Because the sword came down to Sanhedrin. That's what he says. I mean, that's what it seems like the Medrash is saying.
It's interesting because if Hashem is deciding, it's telling us there that Sanhedrin had the power to punish through the sword, and you're saying that the name Horeb stops now and is starting a new generation with a different
name. All these names had to do with. Oh, so you're asking what changed?
It's historically it's not 100% mechuvan.
I hear.
It has to be that the names, Horeb is until now. We call it the Horeb, and it's not that it's just like we had it was called Horeb until a certain period, and then from now on we have a different name. No, we have all the 5 names, till nowadays. So the thing is, what's the influence today?
Right. You can say like that, which was.
We call it Horeb because we have Sinai. We have Sinai, because we have a lot of hatred over here.
Right.
And maybe the other names also like maybe Shavuos we can call it the other, what's it called? The
Gavnunim, yeah. So Rabbi Yomi Izmir asked another question. It says, it's similar to like the idea that you're trying to bring out. It has 5 names, and here the Medrash is singling out. It was called Chorev, and then we switched it and called it Sinai. What happened to the other names? Like, why Dafka we're focusing on these names? Also, the way the Medrash says is like, from when Hashem created Shemayim V'Aretz, from the Bris Ha'olam, it was called Chorev until the Sneh. Why was it called Chorev from Bria Ha'olam till the Sneh? What was this? What's the significance of Chorev from Bria Ha'olam till the Sneh? Why? What did that have to do with anything? And he says he has another question. If it's called Sinai because of the Sneh, why is it called Sinai? Call it Sneh. Sneh is Sneh. Why is Sinai? It doesn't work. Okay, so he says like this. Very interesting idea. First of all, why from the time? Yes, why is it that from the time that the world was created until the story of this Sneh, was it called Chorev? Chazal tell us when Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world, Vahi Erev Vahi Boker Yom Hashishi, the Kodesh Baruch Hu, the hay is a big hay. Why? Because the Kodesh Baruch Hu made a Sneh with Bris Ha'olam. He made a stipulation, a condition with the creation of the world. He said, if the Jews accept the Torah, fine, so the world will continue to exist. If they don't, we're going to destroy the world. This world is not really here because on its own. It's only here on condition that the Jews accept the Torah. If not, the world is going to be destroyed. So from the time that the world was created until Hashem started to take Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim by the Sneh, that's the beginning, all the way from the beginning, all the way till then, the world was sort of hanging. Are we going to continue or are we not going to continue? Are the Jews going to accept the Torah and the world is going to continue? Or they're not going to accept the Torah and then the world will be destroyed? But what represented that question, that suffix that the world had? Har Sinai. Because that's where it was supposed to happen. This is where Har Sinai is where it's supposed to happen, that the Jews are supposed to be will or will not be Makabel the Torah. So because of that, they called it Har Chorev. Chorev, he wants to say not necessarily exactly like the Medrash, but Chorev is a lashon of Churban, destruction. Until from the creation of the world all the way until the Jews started going out of Mitzrayim, the mountain was known as Har Chorev, in allusion to the fact that the destruction of the world will be dependent on this mountain. If the Jews accept the Torah on this mountain, the world won't be destroyed. If they won't accept it, the world will be destroyed. So this is the mountain of destruction. This could bring the destruction of the world, this mountain. That's why it was called Chorev. That's what Rabbi Yomi Isber says. Then he asks, why is it called Sinai, not Sneh? If we said it's called Sinai because of the Sneh, so call it Sneh, not Sinai. So I don't necessarily agree to the question. But once you're asking the question, and the answer that he says is a very passionate answer, which is why I didn't really hear the question.
I think for a second, sorry to interrupt again. We see that in all names.
Oh,
This name because of this. This name of Moshe because it was brought out from the waters. Whatever name we find in the Torah is a reference. It's not the name itself.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly his answer.
You can say like that we just added and used because of a shem. I don't know what.
It's named after something. It's named like in memory of something, but it's not going to have the same name because every name represents the thing itself. The name represents the thing itself and represents certain things, the ideas behind the thing and the deeper understanding of what that thing is. And to call two things the same name, it doesn't make sense. You can't call a bush and a mountain the same thing because it's not the same thing. And he brings
the name. The Jews is the word.
He brings examples, not the same example you said, Moshe, but it says like Reuven. Why is Reuven called Reuven? Because she said Ra Hashem Ba'ani, right? So it's Ra Hashem. So why do you call him Ra? Why do you call him Reuven? You change the word a little bit. You play on the word because you're hinting to that idea, but that's not the actual name. Or Shimon, or he brings a bunch of examples, and he says that this is a deep idea.
From Dodi, whatever.
Yeah. He says this is a deep idea, and if you think about it, you can explain it very well and expand on it according to your knowledge. That's what Rabbi Yomi Israel says. It's like I think it's an idea that, yeah. Okay. What?
Does it have an answer?
Does it have what?
An answer to his question? Why call him not call him Sneh?
No, so he's saying that he doesn't answer exactly why Sneh and Sinai, but he just says that Sneh is not the same thing as Sinai.
Oh, that's him answering the question.
Yeah.
His own question.
Yeah, he answers his own question. Rabbi Yomi Israel. In Pirish over here, V'loi Oid Eli. You can look at it. Starts on page Shin Samech Ches and goes to Shin Samech Tes. What time is it?
37.
10:37. Okay, so we'll stop over here. Thank you for coming. Have a good Shabbos.
Good job.
And